Hello, everybody. So, I wanted to make a video on benzodiazepines and panic attacks because on the panic attack subreddit, I see a lot of people talking about benzos, and I think that a lot of people are sort of on the fence about them. So, and afraid of them and this and that. So, I have been I was prescribed benzodiazepines for the first time at 18 years old, and I'm 29 now. So I've had them for 11 years, and I just wanted to give some key quick tips about them because instead of just like replying to each comment one by one, I figured I could make a video because for all the people out there struggling with panic attacks, I know that benzodiazepines, how tempting they are because they save you. And, when you're having panic attacks all the time, you can't do anything. For me, I was so agoraphobic, like I couldn't go anywhere or do anything. I couldn't live. I could barely even make it to work. I would have horrible panic attacks on the road going to work every day. So I was prescribed benzodiazepines to take as needed. And here's the thing about benzos, everybody. I'll I notice that I ramble a lot in some of my videos, so I want to cut to the chase because I know not everyone's got a lot of time or cares a lot. So benzodiazepines are not a long term are not a long term strategy. They can't help you in the long run you because you develop a tolerance. And I think that if you make a habit of using them, you can end up in a lot of trouble. So you need to keep them something that you use sparingly. And that's what psychiatrists will tell you too. Because if you're having panic attacks all the time and you take a benzo every time you have a panic attack, you're just going to end up in a hell that you couldn't imagine. Benzodiazepine addiction is a hell that you can't imagine. Um, so I would recommend maybe browsing the benzodiazepine addiction subreddit, or watching some YouTube videos from benzodiazepine addicts, people that have gotten hooked on them. And if you listen to those stories, you'll know what I mean. Like, you can't make a habit out of it. So, does that mean that you should never take them? Well, I would say personally, you should only take them when you're on your last legs. Like, I got to the point where I was so floored by panic attacks that I couldn't, you know, I was always anxious and I could never enjoy life. And so I didn't have a lot of hope for the future. And I was like quite suicidal because I just didn't know what to do. I couldn't live. Whenever I tried to do anything, I would have a panic attack. And benzodiazepines, Ativan allowed me to experience life again when I took it. And I think that for people who have been floored for so long that they haven't even gone outside in a long time, the benzodiazepines can let you be normal again for a day. And that can kind of give you hope. For me at least, like when I took Ativan, guys, I would strongly recommend. My main recommendation is to do things when you take benzodiazepines so that it enables you. Every time you take it, you should do something. You should use that to confront your anxiety, you should use that to do things that your anxiety doesn't let you do, because you won't be anxious while you're on them. So, for example, I would paintball, go to the gym. I would go snowboarding with Ativan, and I would go kayaking with Ativan. Things that I could never do without it. Even now, I couldn't. I don't take benzodiazepines anymore. But, and I have, because I've made other videos on my panic attacks and how I deal with them, but I found more long-term solutions. So you can't let the benzo be your crutch. It can't be your crutch. It can only be like your last leg's salvation. And you just have to realize that, like, you can get addicted very easily, and if you do get addicted to them, it will be horror, like actual horror. So make sure that you use the benzodiazepine to give yourself an experience that gives you hope again, like lets you get a taste of life without anxiety. Do something that you've been thinking about doing, even if it's just going downtown for a day on the weekends, So I would recommend you take it when you're having the worst panic attacks that you just can't handle, and then after you take it, you should go and do something. Those are my main recommendations. I'll keep it short and sweet, because you really need to understand, though, that they are dangerous. Like, it's not something that you can just take. You can't take it every day. You'll get a tolerance. So you still need other long-term solutions, but the benzos can enable you and get you out of the deepest of the rock bottom. If you're at rock bottom, then maybe you need them for a little bit. And I would say definitely listen to your psychiatrist and be honest with them about how much you're taking it and stuff, and that you're concerned about addiction. So, and listen to your psychiatrist. So that's about it. I've bought benzos. When I was between jobs, I couldn't access a psychologist for a while, and so I ended up buying benzodiazepines illegally. I bought Xanax from a drug dealer. And if you're in that kind of situation, like, I'm sorry, I know that it sucks, because I would recommend definitely, if for people who end up doing that, because you just need benzos sometimes, and for actual medical problem, not recreation. And you can't get a psychiatrist for whatever reason, and you end up, I wouldn't recommend doing it, of course, but if you do end up doing it, you should buy drug testing kits that let you make sure it's actually Xanax, because you can make anything look like Xanax, and so with a pill press, so you have to make sure that it's not other things, bad things. So yeah, and you don't need a lot. You shouldn't need a lot. Like, I would take it once a month about. I would take Xanax or Ativan about once a month, and then during my worst panic attack periods, I would take it like every day for a week or two. You can do it every day for a week or two, but not indefinitely. You need to find another solution. So it could only be a short-term plan, not a long-term plan. As far as being afraid of them, yeah, I mean, the addiction's dangerous, but, you just have to make sure you don't get addicted. Easier than it sounds for some people, but harder than it sounds for some people. But So cool, everybody. Thank you. There's a lot of different benzos that you can get prescribed, but they all do basically the same thing, and they all build a tolerance. So. Oh, one other thing, guys, to close out the video. This is important. I know a lot of people, I've seen people on the sub complaining about being given antidepressants when they're not depressed. You can't think of an antidepressant as something that only treats depression. It also treats general anxiety disorder. It's a medicine that can treat more than one disease. So they're not telling you you're depressed. So it's like, oh, I don't need an antidepressant. I'm not depressed. Well, SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, treat anxiety. And they do help with anxiety. So, yeah, I wanted to speak up about that misconception of like, well, since I'm not depressed, I shouldn't be taking an antidepressant. I mean, it's like one of my medications for bipolar treats epilepsy. Lamictal. It's an epilepsy medication. And for some reason, it also helps with bipolar disorder. And so it's like, oh, I don't have epilepsy. Why am I taking an anti-epilepsy medication? Well, because it treats more than one thing. So don't say no to an antidepressant just because you're depressed. It's not an antidepressant. It's an SSRI. And SSRIs treat depression, anxiety, and those are the two main things, actually. So, because the anxiety is being caused by a similar deficiency of serotonin in your brain and also GABA. That's the main thing. Benzodiazepines give you GABA, which is like the most direct anti-anxiety neurotransmitter. But general anxiety can be caused by a lack of serotonin. And if your psychiatrist thinks that that's what you have, they'll give you an SSRI, an antidepressant, because it's similar disease treated by similar symptoms. Or similar symptoms, not similar symptoms, but multiple symptoms treated by the same medicine. So that will close out the video. As far as long-term strategies, yeah. Try an antidepressant, and if it doesn't work, try another one if your psychiatrist thinks it can help you. And use the benzodiazepines to get you through the trial periods, because it takes a little while to kick in. So, that's the main thing. Benzodiazepines are short-term. But, you can use them indefinitely as long as you're using them short-term. Like, every time you use them, it's part of a short-term outlook, a short-term plan, then you can use them indefinitely. So, like when I go snowboarding, I usually take it because I get so nervous on the mountain. So, yeah. Cool. Thank you, everybody.